Jarod, thank you so much for joining us at the Jewish Independent today. So, we're talking about the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And for those who might not be familiar with such an iconic tale, do you want to take us through the story briefly?
Of course, and thank you so much, Ruby, for having me at the Jewish Independent. So, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is a beautiful story originally written by Victor Hugo, who you may know as the author of Les Mis, which also found itself on stage as well. So, Victor Hugo wanted to tell a story based around this incredible piece of architecture in Paris called Notre Dame. And at its core, it is the story of a the titular hunchback named Quasimodo, who lives in this beautiful tower with his master Frollo. And if you've ever seen the movie Tangled, it's a bit of a similar dynamic. Frollo says, "It's safe here. It's good here. I treat you well. I clothe you. I feed you. This is your home. This is your sanctuary." But then one day, Quasimodo decides, you know what? There's a very special festival out there. This is the last time they're going to hold this festival. This is my last chance to see what it will be like out there. To act like a real human doing their daily thing just for one moment. So he disobeys his master and sneaks outside. And there, Frollo and Quasimodo both fall in love with a beautiful Romani girl named Esmeralda. And that's kind of what starts everything off. Frollo, being a deeply religious man, starts to question how his faith plays with this love for someone of a different religion, and it plays out in some really interesting and exciting ways. And there's humor, and there's some romantic tension, and there's Quasimodo's desire to not be alone, to find to because he has been told his entire life he's a monster, he's ugly. He If he goes outside, he'll not be accepted. And the whole show is essentially a quest for Quasimodo to find love and to know that he is more than just the the shell that he lives in.
Mm.
That's a very wordy way of describing it, but
No,
it's what you see
not
as
at
well.
all. Yeah, I love that you also use Tangled as a way for some audiences to probably understand it, like totally modern um, reference. But I think that's really great. A great, summary and also leaving us hanging. We don't need to know the full story, so that's really good. You touched a little bit on the romance and I guess, this idea of being a prisoner or being held kind of, away from society. But what are some of the other key themes of the musical, which you'll be starring in?
Of course. Well, the main theme, which is repeated at the beginning and end of the musical, what makes a monster and what makes a man?
So
Uh,
good. Chills, chills.
if that's me really early in the morning, imagine me after a ton of tea and
Love it.
um, so the main theme of the show is it explores inner beauty versus outward monstrosity,
Yeah.
about how one is often perceived as righteous or evil based on how they physically present to the world. If they're a beautiful person, if they have some letters after their name, if they have a particular job title, and then that is counterbalanced with how the putting trust and faith into people with authority, if that is always well placed, and the potential of abuse of power, etc. And then on the other hand, you have someone like Quasimodo, who, based on how he presents to the world through no fault of his own, he is discriminated against.
Mm.
Yet he still carries this pure kindness inside of him, that even though he has these microaggressions every day, he still decides to bring kindness into the world. And the musical asks us to wrestle with this question: what really makes a monster and what makes a man? That's the main theme of the show, and I love it deeply.
And obviously themes that made such a story as popular back in the day as it is now. These themes sort of, I guess, are evergreen. They are just as important in our society today as when I am assuming Victor Hugo wrote the book to begin with. So you're starring in the Bats Theatre Company's adaptation of The Hunchback. Is there anything different in this version that audiences can expect?
Well, just a little bit of context. So Victor Hugo wrote his novel in the 1800s, I believe. And then in 1996, Disney released an animated version, which many of your viewers may have seen. It was around the time of Aladdin, The Lion King, Pocahontas, Mulan. Um, and that show was extremely popular, made a ton of money, which I'm sure they were happy with. There was this wrestling between making it light and fluffy and enough of a family piece to play under the Disney brand, while also being as authentic as possible to the Hunchback story. I mean, why choose Hunchback if you're not going to go there? So that was always a question mark. And then when they decided to do the stage version many years later, it took them about 20 years to have the final adaptation because it kept having rewrites. Um, they really decided to take it to where it could go. So the way it is described, including our Bats version, instead of being Disney's Frozen or Disney's Aladdin, it is Victor Hugo's The Hunchback of Notre Dame with songs from the Disney film, which
Okay.
is a very accurate way to describe it. It's like I said, it has it's gothic and it has actually okay. So Thomas Schumacher, who was the president of Disney on Broadway, he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but he said these characters all wrestle and they stumble through life not knowing what the correct answer is, but they try to do what they believe is right. And the musical goes to a place that some people may call dark, that he calls life.
Nice. I think it's, a really common experience for us to understand that, you can Disneyfy almost a story. Like we look at the Grimm's Brothers fairy tales and how different the Snow White and Cinderella version of it came out through Disney. So I think it's good to know, I guess maybe you'll get even a larger audience by going back to that original darker gothic um kind of scenes, but also, the music that we all love and can resonate with.
Plus the songs you love. Out there living in the sun, hellfire, dark fire, must be heaven's light. All the songs you love.
So good, Jarod. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is a great segue because I want to know a little bit about your background in theatre. What was the initial spark for going into the arts? What roles have you played before, braving Quasimodo? How did this beautiful voice begin?
Well, I was born in, no, let's not go back that far. I started off as a singer. I'm a classically trained singer, and I've had many exciting opportunities to utilize that on TV, in a function band at all the bar mitzvahs and weddings you can imagine back in Perth, where I was born,
Yeah.
and uh, and even busking in the streets of Perth, which was very fun.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think of songs as monologues put to music. So when I sing a song, I don't obviously I practice the notes and I make sure that I'm vocally placed to perform each note correctly. But I'm also thinking about what is this character thinking in this moment. I always like to sing a word as if the character is coming up with that word in that moment, not like I've rehearsed this song two
Yeah.
years before and I'm just parroting. So you can have a note, ah, but is the character frightened? Ah, or do they have conviction? Ah, or are they kind of, trying to talk to someone? Ah. So the same note can have different timbres and the way that you play with your notes can have a profound effect. So for me, the natural progression was theatre, a larger form of what I was doing already. And I've had incredible opportunities within the Jewish community here in Melbourne. Um, and through Stars and the Moon, through Purim Spiel, I did their show last year, Putnam Spelling Bee, where I sang a beautiful song, the I Love You song, with two other incredible performers.
Awesome.
And last year I did Mlock's Fiddler on the Roof as well, under the incredible directors Adrian and Sarah. And uh, yeah, being able to sing the classic song "Miracle of Miracles." This nebbish guy that you love, and he wants to, very similar to Quasimodo actually. I love these characters who have so much inside them that is just bursting to come out, but constantly it's being kind of shut down by others. And I love how they it's just kind of sad and beautiful that they want to try and whenever he talks to Tevye, he said he wants to tell Tevye that he's in love with Seitel. And the whole time Tevye goes off onto some other tangent, and he just Tevye, just give me 1 second, just oh, okay, next time, build up the courage again. Okay, go. And so to be able to dive into theater, that was always a dream of mine. And to be able to play Quasimodo, one of my absolute dream roles, it's Hashgacha Pratit, it's divine providence to be able to be in this moment right now with you and to be able to even talk about it.
Mm. I don't think there's anything more Jewish. Maybe, I guess someone could argue with me about it, but Miracle, Wonder of Wonder, Miracles of Miracles, that song is just so nostalgic for so many people, including me. I think I break out into something from Fiddler, in my house daily. So I can imagine that would have been a pretty great experience. And then, like you said, now moving into Quasimodo, this dream role, this really infamous character. What about its link? You mentioned it briefly, but what about Quasimodo's link to his Jewish identity? I know it's alluded to a little bit, and there's other kind of, I guess, traits that he has, but did you identify with any of that, or have you chosen to bring any of that out a little bit in your portrayal of Quasimodo?
That's a really interesting question. I don't think in our interpretation of Hunchback, Quasimodo is a coded Jewish character. I
Mhm.
know that he's coded Romani, um, because in the first, it's not really a spoiler. In the first song of the show, Frollo is the so Frollo and his brother were taken in to the church as orphans, and his brother decided to go drinking and partying, and he falls in love with a Romani woman, and so Quasimodo is half Romani, and and that is the jumping off point for the story. Uh, but in terms of the Jewish, so I believe Hunchback is an authentically Jewish story, which might sound strange because it's set in a cathedral. But at its core, Hunchback is an ode to outcasts. There is a song called God Help the Outcasts, where Esmeralda, the Romani woman, she's not religious well, she's not Christian or Catholic in any sense, but she still asks God, how can you sit by and watch people suffer? Why there are these other rich, noble people in the church saying, "I pray for wealth, I pray for love, I pray for a promotion," and she's saying, "I want none of this. All I want is for the world tomorrow to be a better place than I found it in yesterday." And I think that's us as Jews, we are the quintessential outcasts. We have been outcast from place to place to place, and yet we seek stability and we seek home and sanctuary, which is another important theme of the show. And it's very similar to Quasimodo, despite the constant um, uh, 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 way that we have been perceived by other nations and other groups. We still maintain this spark, this fire that burns within us to bring lightness and goodness to other people. And I think that's really what as a Jewish person, that is part of what drew me to this particular story. And I hope
Mm.
that other people um, come and get to experience that as well.
Yeah, I think that's really well put. And kind of, lends itself to the closing question I had for you, which was, what I guess did you want or do you hope the biggest takeaway or lesson that audience members learn after seeing this production?
The biggest takeaway. Mm, I would say I would love the show to. I don't want to give away the ending, um, but I would love the show to. It is a piece of entertainment. It's extremely fun and joyful, and with dance numbers and songs that you know really well from Disney, and it's bright, colorful. And at the same time, it asks the audience to really think about some topics, to think about some themes, about the nature of good versus evil, about uh, beauty. Where does beauty really come from? Does it come from your soul, or does it come from your physical features, or your status in the world?
Mm.
Does it come from how is life really about how others perceive you, or about what you know about yourself? Um, and really, it is an ode to tzedakah. It's an ode to using your resources, using everything that you have, not to not to build up your own life, but to help someone who's less fortunate, to bring justice to those who have none, to give a microphone to those who have not had that opportunity to speak up. And I ultimately, I think that's a takeaway I'd love everyone to have.
Mm. And I mean, I think, Jarod, if, our audience didn't realize we were talking about the Hunchback of Notre Dame, those sorts of messages could be applied to so many different circumstances. Especially, I think, for Jews in our current climate and the idea of, being really firm about who we are and what we believe in as Jews, as opposed to what the world is telling us to be, is really important. And I think that's a great message to end on. So, I'll do the plug, but if you want to add anything else, let me know. So I'll say that tickets are on sale for the Bats Theatre's production of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which will be running in Melbourne from the 5th to the 7th of July. Here is the beautiful poster. 5th, there it is, right close to the screen. Thank you so much for your time today, Jarod. It was really great to hear from you, to hear about your connection to this musical, to hear you sing, and I wish you all the best for the performance.
Now it's your turn. Can you give us some notes?
Oh, Jared, please, please don't let me embarrass myself. I'll leave it to the experts. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care, Ruby.